Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Sleep Talks and Strategy Guide series. In this episode, I had a very neat idea. Now, for those of you that don't know, I just recently made a video that I collaborated with Iben Brown Plays Pokemon Sleep on. We talked about future suggestions that we want to see added to the game, but something that I really didn't discuss in that video, and that he didn't really discuss that much either, was suggestions that we have for game balance between the Pokemon. And I reached out to him, suggested maybe making another video talking about like balancing the Pokemon, but he said he didn't have that many ideas for it, so I figured I'll save the idea and use it for my own individual video. So instead of getting another podcast style video like that, you guys are getting this video here, which I wanted to talk about what Pokemon I think I've talked about Pokemon that I think need buffs in the game in the past, but I just wanted to throw out a few ideas of like how we could buff those Pokemon and make them more interesting. Now, I didn't want to just give all these Pokemon raw stat increases because I think that can be a way to balance the game and balance Pokemon out in this game. But I think overall that's a less interesting way of giving them some sort of niche, especially because then you're just trying to make them like equal to the equivalent or the other options, or make them better than the other options is also another possibility. So for most of these, I'm not going to suggest just stat increases because I think doing those sorts of changes don't fix the core of why some of these Pokemon are bad. Because even if you make them better and closer in comparison to the alternatives, you're still not making them more useful in a different way than the alternatives. I think it's more interesting if they do buffs like back when they did Houndoom's change, or and they changed its skill to charge strength M. It then made it better at being a generalist berry specialist, rather than necessarily a dark type favored berry specialist. Gave it a bit more of a niche over the other dark type berry options. Or back when they changed Mr. Mime and Ditto's main skill to make them more this interesting at doing skills, despite being ingredient specialists over what they do. So those are the sorts of changes that I'm generally going to be looking towards. That is not to say that some of these Pokemon don't need stat increases, and I will discuss them when I think they need them. But I want to talk about how we could make these more interesting niche options rather than just bad Pokemon. So let's get right into it. So the first ones that I wanted to discuss were the Energizing Cheer Pokemon. These Pokemon are flawed because Energy for Everyone is just a better skill. It's more readily available, and all of them have the same problem of their main skill is Energizing Cheer. They can be decent at spot healing, making up for spots that your main healer doesn't really fill in, but realistically, you're probably running these guys for something else. Most likely it is going to be Tails or Suicune synergy with Slowbro and or Slowking. And it's likely that you might have both of them on the team if you're trying to do Suicune synergy. You're probably not running them thinking about the Energizing Cheer as your main source of healing, unless it is your only option because you're looking to build a mono water type team. Wobbuffet and Leafeon, you've probably never actually considered. You probably only considered a Wobbuffet as a meme option because Wobbuffet is notoriously bad in this game. So, my biggest suggestion of how to fix the skill, and they've already kind of been walking down this road, but I think that they could just take it all the way, is to just make it so that the skill always targets the lowest energy Pokemon on the team. The fact that it has a chance to be, and only randomize which Pokemon it hits in the event of a tie in energy. The reason why the skill is innately flawed is because it always does have a chance to misfire and then waste energy. The less that happens, the better. And then it gives it this opportunity, it gives it a niche option over Energy for Everyone, where Energy for Everyone's always going to just proc universally across all Pokemon. That's going to unfairly, like, it's not as necessary to give as many procs to your Energy Recovery Up Pokemon. It might be useful for these guys to proc on your Energy Recovery Down Pokemon more often because they need it more often. It actually could give some viability to the main skill, but the fact that it still can waste their procs is just a major drawback, and it makes the skill rather unreliable. Even if they made like 90%, I'm still not sure that would necessarily fix the problem. It really should just be guaranteed that it hits the weakest Pokemon for energy, because that helps counteract the effects of that downside to the main skill, and could also help in the event of like swapping the team, You have one Pokemon that's particularly struggling, you can get that one to be more energized. It goes back into the box. You can spot healing for the box. I think there's a lot of niche applications of it if you make it be guaranteed to hit the lowest energy Pokemon. Now, I also do want to specifically call out Wobbuffet, because Wobbuffet is kind of notoriously bad. It's actually the second best in this subcategory of healer as of right now, if you compare all four of them, but the other ones kind of have a bit of a niche. Slowbro, Tails are kind of the name of its game, and same with Slowking. Now, Slowking actually performs a little bit better here. That's because it's being, or not better, but close. That's primarily just because it's got better healing. Meaning this guy's energized more throughout the day than this guy is, but this guy still produces a little more Tails. So it's got a niche in Tails and Suicune synergy. Leafeon's got a niche of, if you really want an energizing cheer Pokemon, almost everybody's caught good EVs, so they're going to have it available. Meanwhile, nobody's hunting Wynots. So I think one good little thing that it might be able to do is just give it, and this is one of the situations where I think just give it a little bit more trigger. Comparative. It should be better than Slowking. It's got a lower frequency, so it produces less berries. These guys have got Tails and Suicune synergy going for it. Leafeon, it's got that flexibility. I don't think it's that bad to suggest the idea that Wobbuffet should be the best at the skill itself. Since it is weaker in every other category, why shouldn't it be the best at the skill itself? Even like Slowking and Leafeon, you can evolve them rather early on since they just take an item. Wobbuffet does have that going for it as well because it has a relatively low evolution rate and requirement. And it doesn't take an item, so I guess it's cheaper in that regard. But the item requirement makes it pretty easy to evolve these two. The only one that might take some time is Slowbro. So I really think Wobbuffet should just be the best at the skill. But oh well. And then, yeah. That's really all my notes about the Energizing Cheer Pokemon. So, the next subcategory of Pokemon that I want to talk about is Dream Shard Magnet. Now, there's 5 Dream Shard Magnet Pokemon in the game, but the only real one that gets talked about is Swalot. Because if you look at the comparison here, it's like not even close. All the fixed Dream Shard Magnet Pokemon just suck. Don't even consider catching these Pokemon with the way they are currently designed. They all are terrible. I just realized I forgot to set this guy to level 60. But still sucks. Doesn't help it that much, realistically. It's just, the comparison is sad. Sableye and Swalot are the only ones that are worth investing into, in my opinion. And Swalot is the only one that I think is worth hunting because Sableye is a 16 pip option. Now, my suggestion here is to give them a bit more niche usage. I don't want to just completely change. Or I don't want to just say, oh, I just buff all the ones with this, because obviously they need a buff. How are we going to buff them, though? Persian, I think it'd be cool if its main skill changed. Instead of Dream Shard Magnet S, we could do Payday Dream Shard Magnet S, and here's my suggestion to that. Just give it like a crit chance. It could be interesting then, because maybe it could be a Dream Shard Magnet Pokemon that you swap around. If you give it, that you like run it for a little bit after a sleep session until you get the crit and then maybe swap it off for another one, it gives it a bit more of a unique niche, makes the Pokemon way more interesting, may actually be worth investment. And then also additional skill trigger or just making the skill stronger in general is not the worst idea. A little bit of trigger rate could never hurt these guys for sure. Now, Lucario, I think Lucario could be a very interesting like pseudo Dream Shard Magnet and Berry Specialist. So realistically, I think it'd be neat if they just dropped its skill rate a little bit, but then drastically increased its frequency so that it could theoretically compete with, say, like a Primeape for not necessarily overtake Primeape because Primeape is still the Berry Specialist. But I think it'd be neat if we had a pseudo Berry option with Dream Shard Magnet, just because I think Dream Shard Magnet with a good Berry Finder is a really neat combo. So right now, it's just not good enough to get that. Even if I have this combination here, and I have Berry Finding S on him, you can see that like the comparison, it's like 2/3, which is what you'd expect. But I suggest drop the Dream Shard Magnet rate, and then increase the frequency so that it procs about the same amount as it's currently procking, but also produces more berries. That's my suggestion to fix or make Lucario more interesting. Sableye, here's one that I suggest just straight up buff it. it is the 16 pip option. It should be better than the 5 pip option. It takes an extra seed because it's got an extra layer of evolution. Realistically, you should not be catching a Swalot with the way it's currently... Or, you should not be catching a Sableye, because Swalot is just better in every way. It is cheaper. It is easier to catch. It's even got better berry productivity. So, and theoretically, once the last island's out, then the Swalot will also have a better island, most likely. I assume the next island's going to be stronger than what we've currently had. So, there's really no reason to catch Sableye. I think it would be alright if it was the best at proccing the main skill, since it costs that much extra compared to the Swalot. And then Holiday Hat Pika, I don't know. Maybe there could be some sort of idea with, like, Present, make its main skill instead of just Dream Shard Magnet, like Present Dream Shard Magnet, where... I don't even know with this one. It's an event Pokemon. They're kind of made to be gimmicks. They're not really designed to be good in this game, so... It doesn't really need to be good. If they want to make it good, the only way that I'd see the devs going about adjusting this would be just making it proc the skill more, or making its frequency faster. But I know there could be something with Present that I think if they made Present a main skill, they'd also have to give it to Delibird, just because of logic would dictate. But yeah, that's my suggestion for it. And another reason why it really should proc the skill. These guys should proc their skill a little bit more. I wanted to make this comparison. I have the Charge Strength Pokemon down here for Berry Finders. You can see that, like, Raichu compared to Primeape. Primeape's got the stronger main skill with the variable amount, like what these guys have. But to make up for that, the Raichu procs the skill more often. And it actually makes it stronger skill-wise than the Primeape. It doesn't proc more than Meganium. Meganium's a bit more of a rare option. The Johto starters proc the skill way more than you would expect, but you can see here that they've balanced it kind of like in this regard. I'm surprised they didn't balance it for these guys as well. I understand that this is consistent, whereas this is random, but we're talking long periods of time. It's okay if there's a level of randomness because it will all even out over time. That's how RNG kind of works. So, especially with Dream Shards, where you're looking to invest in big bulk options at once. Doesn't matter if you have good days and bad days with Dream Shards. Because in the end, you only have to invest once. Alrighty. So, next Pokemon that I wanted to discuss was Drifblim. I think that Drifblim is I think that they just need to rework the skill a little bit. It's weird right now because if you look at the distributions for the strength, 4502 is 1 proc for 4,502 strength. 1 proc is, or 2 procs, so 1 stockpile and 1 spit up, gives you 7,653. This is like 3,800 strength for 2 per proc. This is like 4,500 strength per proc. I think that is stupid that a 0 proc is worth more per proc than 1. It should be that the more stockpiled, always the better. Right now, it's not until like 7 or 8, like it's like 6, 7, or 8. I forgot the exact number right now, but it's like somewhere in that range is where it finally is actually better to stockpile than to just spit up right away. That is just illogical. It should have been from the start that the level at the 0 stockpile proc is weaker per proc than all the other ones, but it's not. And I think if they just rebalance this and redistributed this so that the 0 proc is a little bit weaker and every other proc is a little bit stronger, then I think that could fix the whole problem with Drifblim right now. I don't think that's the only problem. I think that it would need to make it so that the average strength increases, because you can see the averages here. And comparative to Ampharos and Golduck, it is just not even close. If you want to be collecting a lot, use a Golduck. If you want, or I guess, use what you catch. That's always a thing. But realistically, 31,000 versus 35 and 37,000. This one you don't have to collect as often. This one is stronger even. This one takes crazy amounts of commitment. You have to leave it on the team to actually get the strength out of it because of the stockpiling mechanic. It takes more commitment than the other options, yet results in lower strength gains. Once again, I think this is one that if it was just numerically stronger, it would be a more viable option, more interesting, because now you're letting players commit to a Pokemon more for greater strength overall. So I think there is just something there for boosting Drifblim just by changing up the stock, these numbers. Just change up these numbers quite a bit, so that the zero proc isn't stronger, and the later procs are way stronger. Makes it even more exciting. It does leave more doors open for the airplane mode bug being abused to clear procs and carry strength over into a next week. If they're worried about that, then I think the solution to that is to just fix the airplane mode bug. It's clearly unintentional, so fix the airplane mode exploit. If they did that, then I think there'd be no reason for them to not rebalance it in such a way, and make it more comparable to the alternative options. Okay, next one, Umbreon. This is actually one that I have to give credit where credit is due. This I kind of got the idea, or I did get the idea from iBen Brown in that video that he posted, which I'll link in the description for you guys. Umbreon, I think it could benefit if they just decreased its skill trigger rate a little bit, or a decent amount even. You could decrease this, like you could cut it in half and it'd still do about what it does. And then give it more frequency, just so that it can actually kind of work as a pseudo berry specialist for berry finding EV options. Right now, a berry finding EV is just underwhelming because there really isn't. It can give you temporary coverage where you don't have coverage for a berry type, but overall, it's just going to be worse than the alternative options for actual berry finders for those islands, even with some of the most jacked berry finding stats. I think if we had one good option for a berry finding SEV to be a legitimate berry specialist, I think that could be interesting. Make it so that it's not as good at its skill. It's technically supposed to be a skill specialist, so I don't think it should compete with these other options. It also should theoretically be easier to catch, and it also provides some spot healing. So just decrease the trigger rate so it's not proccing the skill as much, but jack up the frequency. You can even decrease it so that it's losing energy through the skill. We don't care about this skill. This skill doesn't matter. People would be fine if you decrease the skill and increase the frequency, so that it actually somewhat competed. We're getting numbers of like 31k and 34k here. If this number was like 29 or 30k, it'd still be weaker than the other options, but it'd be actually comparable for berry productivity, and that's what I think I'd like to see for Umbreon. Make it actually work as a pseudo berry specialist. Then, next one is just, I lumped these all together as the bad berry Pokemon, and I kind of like these suggestions overall. So Marowak is a very, very sad Pokemon in this game. It is the saddest berry specialist in the game. I think one way they could help it out is give it its Alolan form, but I'd like to see Cantonian Marowak be a decent option as well, so that there's actually a reasoning to choose it over the Alolan option. And I think one way to make it a bit more interesting is to kind of make it almost a pseudo ingredient specialist to a capacity. It should still be a berry specialist first and foremost, but if it actually produced a good amount of ingredients that you could actually reliably make certain meals off of it by having some meal synergy, but realistically this 28 ginger per day is not good enough. Let's see if I pull in a Raichu with an ABP list. The Raichu's so fast. Raichu's insane. If I just make this comparison, right now, even though this guy's got the mono list, it is weaker than the Raichu for ginger production. That is bogus. This guy has a higher natural ingredient rate of 22.5% versus 22.4%. I don't think they should increase that, because that is one of the things that makes Marowak bad. But I think if they just made it that it actually got some more ingredients, and I think the only way that they could do that is if they just buffed its list. And we see Meganium, who has actually a relatively strong list for an ingredient specialist, or a berry specialist. I don't think it'd be a bad idea if, say, these were both 3, and then, like, this was 5 and 4. If you just gave one more ingredient to each one of these, you're not messing up the rate that Marowak finds berries. It's just finding more ingredients. If you gave it a bit more inventory, then it might actually produce some substantial amounts of these ingredients to the point where you could see it actually kind of be used. Additionally, in this guy's case, a bit more frequency would never hurt as well. It could honestly use all of this. And I think then it doesn't just become a better option than, say, Typhlosion at top, but it gives it a bit more of a niche in its ginger productivity. And I think also seeing a meal with synergy of ginger and cacao would also be kind of nice to help this guy out a little bit, because then maybe there'd be some sort of interesting use in team building for the Marowak, even though it is terrible for frequency by being sort of a bit of a dual specialist. The next one is Arbok. Now, Arbok did receive a frequency buff, but I still think it is kind of innately flawed. And this is honestly one of my favorite ideas in this game. There is a move in Pokemon called Glare. It is a very interesting move because it's really only learned by, like, the snake Pokemon. And it's kind of notorious because it's a very, very powerful move in the base game. And what it does is, the whole idea is that the snake is, like, intimidating and frightening the foe into paralysis. So it's a guaranteed paralyze. And something that's very interesting about it is that it's also unique in the fact that it is a normal type move, not electric. So it's a normal type move that paralyzes. So it works on ground type Pokemon, which is rare. So it's a very powerful move that's only really on, like, snake Pokemon, as you can see here. So I wanted to kind of pay homage to that and say, what if we gave Arbok an extra helpful S variant, which is a very, very powerful main skill on berry specialists, as we see with, like, Alolan Ninetales, instead of Charge Energy S. Charge Energy S is a crap skill on berry specialists. It really is. So what if we gave it Glare extra helpful S? And all this would do is it's saying it intimidates a team member into finding X number of helps. And where I think it could be neat is if it's got to make it a skill with a little bit of a drawback. So it's like it's paralyzing the foe. So what it could do is when it helps, it's stronger than the main skill, the original main skill. It makes them help more than what the other one does, but it also uses a little bit of their energy. Then we could also see a bit more usage for Pokemon like the Energizing Cheer Pokemon. If Arbok became meta by proccing the skill, it forces other Pokemon on the team to proc, but it uses some of their energy, depletes some of their energy, then some Pokemon are going to be hurting more than others. It also gives a bit more of a usage for people who have extraordinary healers. There actually is a usage to getting more procs on your healer, because now you could expend more of that energy on this powerful skill. Granted, it is a berry specialist. It should never be the focus of the Pokemon. But I think it'd be a nice little boost to a Pokemon that is currently kind of lackluster. And I think it's a really cool homage to this move from the base games. Because Glare is just kind of cool. And look, Arbok learns it. The only Gen 1 Pokemon line that learns it is the Arbok line. So, yeah. Then, Clefable. I think they should... Clefable, I mean, once again, frequency never hurts. And it could probably use a little bit of that. But the way that I want to see Clefable buffed, just give it more skill trigger rate. Metronome is fun. I don't think it'd be that game-breaking. And Metronome is fun. So, additionally, you could buff Togekiss's main skill proc rate. Because, once again, Metronome is fun. And Togekiss... If you're buffing Clefable for it, why not buff Togekiss as well? It would just be more of a neat, unique niche. Primeape, I think they could just give it an evolution to Annihilape. It's in the base games. A lot of people think that Annihilape should be Ghost-type berry, but I don't think so. We already have plenty of favored berry specialists at the Old Gold Power Plant that are pretty good. Steelix, one of the most powerful in the game. Raichu, one of the most powerful in the game. We don't need another Ghost berry specialist for the Old Gold Power Plant. But we don't have a good fighting type berry specialist. And I think if we just made Annihilape, that'd be cool. Maybe you could even give some sort of interesting main skill based off of Rage Fist. which is Annihilate's signature move in the base game. Don't know what that would look like, but just give it an evolution. I've talked about this before. That's my thoughts on Primeape. Slacking, genuinely, if you just changed its specialty, I think it would be a decent Mon. Just make it a skill specialist. I know that'd be kind of weird because it is a berry specialist as a Vigoroth, and people use it for Vigoroth, so you can't just change the whole line, because then people who have invested in a Vigoroth would be upset, especially since it takes so many sleep hours to get it to have that ribbon to make it better. But I think it'd be neat if it was the first Pokemon in the game that actually changed its specialty upon evolution. And if they just made Slacking a skill specialist, bring down one berry from it, and make it that it can bank skills, it would do so much better. It's already comparable for the main skill. If you compare it to the other options for Ingredient Magnet S, it actually comes in kind of close, and this gap would be closed a lot more if it just had the ability to bank its skill. So I think that is all that needs to be done to fix Slacking just fine. Then the last Pokemon I wanted to discuss is Comfey. It is sad, the comparison here for Corn. Firstly, I think there could be more options for Corn and Ginger. Give it a bit more synergy for its ingredient list. Maybe even something for Corn and Cacao if someone's taking a Comfey all the way to level 60 for the C ingredient. But I think the bigger change here is just build more off that idea of healing in its skill. Energizing Cheer, anything with energy to the rest of the team on a non-skill specialist is somewhat notable, because like providing spot healing is neat, but it's not enough to make up for the like over 20% difference that is between the alternative options. Even Dragonite with an ABB list is more than 20% better than the Comfey. So that is a very significant difference. Even Help Speed M doesn't make up for that difference. So yeah, I just want to build off that idea with the skill a little bit more, kind of like what they did with Ditto and Mime. And I think that you could pay an homage to its signature ability in the base games of Triage. Now, just like, I think that it could be like Triage, Energizing Cheer S. And I think something that could be a bit unique about it is, what if it was just like Energizing Cheer? Maybe, but instead of being forced to proc on the lowest energy Pokemon for the team, it always procs on the non-lowest, and has a chance to proc on the highest energy Pokemon. But then where it could be a unique niche is by making it so that it can be the only way for a Mons energy to go beyond 150%, maybe to a new cap of like 200%. That would make it interesting. I'm not saying it'd be good, but it'd be a neat niche for Comfey, and maybe a reason to use it over, say, Beware or Dragonite on some teams, if you have a good one to invest up. Now, once again, a little bit of ingredient rate, a little bit of frequency never hurts these guys, especially if you do make that sort of drastic change to its skill. But I think giving it some sort of skill like that pays homage to the priority. Triage, what it does in the base games is it gives priority to all healing moves. It makes it so that all healing moves move first in order of combat, basically. So if you gave it priority to heal something beyond 150%, I think that'd be a really neat and interesting niche option, and be a way to take something beyond 150%, so you could easily swap around the team a bit more as you have Pokemon that are at that point. It might also be useless. Who knows? I don't know. But I think it'd be neat, because I'd like to see these Pokemon that all struggle in some capacity actually have a chance to shine in some unique situations. Like I said, I don't want to see them just be better than the alternatives, but they should be interesting to use and have a reason to use them. And I think that those are just some great suggestions of how we can go about modifying those Pokemon to actually stand out, like what they've done with Mr. Mime. I love what they did with Mr. Mime, and I love what they did with Ditto, and I just love to see that treatment spread across more Pokemon, because as you make more of those unique interactions, people start considering more cool and creative teams. So, if you have enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. leave a comment if you have any ideas of how these Pokemon could be buffed or any thoughts about my ideas. Leave a comment. I'd love to see you guys discuss it, and I'd love to respond to you. So yeah, down in the description, I'll leave a link to the Discord where we talk about all things Pokemon Sleep and the like. Come join us, hang out, talk about all those things. And yeah, if you haven't enjoyed the video, well, if you watched to this point, thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.